Explaining a strange belief. I have often been asked the question, do I believe in God? There is, frequently, a confusion when I show a reluctance to answer. Am I a non-believer? Am I just sitting on the fence? The real answer may come as a surprise, though not to someone who has a similar shared belief. Here is the problem. The question itself is loaded. Am I being asked whether I believe in their God or their version of God? Am I being asked whether I am an atheist? Well, only the latter has an easy, definitive answer, and that I do not accept the concept of atheism, which makes little sense from a spiritual viewpoint, and may well be challenged further as science advances. Two recent experiences may help in determining whether I have the answer that you would wish me to give, or whether my answer actually exposes a great divide. The first. My neighbour, slightly older than me, is a devout Muslim. He asked the question of me, did I believe in God? And I was able to give an affirmative answer. I'm not a Muslim. But in his question, he was clear that his concept was that we shared God, and that I could identify with. You might easily misinterpret this answer, for the answer was directed to the individual who had asked the question. The affirmative answer was to acknowledge to that individual that I did believe we shared God. The second experience, rather different. A writer whose work expressed a deep and intense desire to seek out the God she believed that she had lost, a God whom she felt she had deserted. That struck a chord with me, and I realized that our whole lives can be striving to search for that perfect relationship with God. That search leads to walking along the same spiritual path. So I tread that path with another, believing in God. That was the only way I could answer the writer's question, to join the search, hand in hand. So what is it that makes the belief strong? Judged by some, I think I hold views that could be considered heretical. I would probably have been first in line for the Inquisition a few hundred years ago. I start, however, at the end of the life of Jesus and with his trial. The version given by John, chapter 18, verse 36, when Jesus responds to a question from Pilate. Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then would my servants fight." To me, this is a strong statement, and it confirms the temptation accounts. Even facing death, Jesus still rejects the ideas that there are solutions that can be obtained through war, violence, greed, corruption, and other means advocated by so many politicians and military leaders. Jesus sees a different kingdom. When he talks of this world, he means the world people see around them, a world where military occupation with all its brutality was common, where religious sects had tried to define God in terms of hundreds of laws. Jesus rejected such ideas. My next step in my search leads me to Jesus' words in another gospel. The words are recorded in Matthew. "Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, as in heaven, so on earth." As the years pass, so this statement seems to grow in strength and meaning for me. We are not trying to live our lives in the hope that there will be some paradise that we might obtain, and we are not here to follow a myriad of rulings laid down by any religious group. We are here to bring the kingdom of God to earth. The statement is crystal clear for me, and there is only one interpretation that makes sense. our lives must be to try and act in a way that reflects God's will, a way that brings his kingdom to this earth. There will be reward for this from God. That means I have to examine God's will. That is a part of my search. For to discover his will means that I must develop a close relationship with him. For many, that means trying to develop a relationship through prayer, from Bible study, from church attendance. I find that in itself has an issue, namely that there is a risk that such a view becomes inward-looking. Jesus' example throughout his life was to show God's love by serving the needs of others. He was looking outward. He shows us clearly how we may carry out this service to develop our relationship with God. Again, I shall choose Matthew chapter 5, verses 3 to 11 to illustrate the point. The Beatitudes show us the life we need to lead to help bring this kingdom to earth. They do not portray a kingdom held together by power, greed, or by military rule. They are words of a kingdom where we serve each other by showing love, mercy, and by being peacemakers, not warmongers. Of course, prayer plays an important part in this, but you have to believe that God answers in his own way. Some feel their prayers are not answered, others feel confused. But where the heart and mind truly seek, then God can often answer in wondrous ways. The most wondrous of those ways is when he speaks through another. Wondrous because he is searching out those who seek, and he brings them together in their search. Too often we see this a little narrowly, suggesting the bringing together is through a church. That is not always the case. Sometimes he brings two individuals together in a wondrous and incredible journey to share and build a beautiful relationship with him. Perhaps the most significant part is when we discover that our search is being successful. A person living by greed might suggest that this is when they win the lottery or buy a new house or a new car. But the rewards of God are actually bestowed very differently. And I find that the words of Psalm 23 portray that wonder of searching and finding. And we can identify with our search and finding by considering these words. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of a shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. To me, this is when we feel that the search has found the path, has found who to walk with, and so the journey can continue in joy and in happiness. To select a few passages to portray a faith is not easy, but this does give me the foundation to continue along the shared path and to discover so many wondrous ways in which a kingdom of earth might be achieved.